Hello, everybody. Dean Whiting from Pathology Technology here, and this is the second in our mini-series where we feature Professor Mary Louise McLaws, epidemiologist from New South Wales University and World Health Organization specialist in infection and infection control. So Mary Louise, welcome again. I know I get your title different every time. It's funny, isn't it? This time, we'd like to focus in on the topic of immunisation and the importance of immunisation. And let me just get my notes up so I can see here. We know that there's this thing called, waning immunity. And we know that we're all supposed to get a booster at some stage. Can you tell us a little bit about this waning immunity and the importance of boosters?
So, you often have to look at lived experience, and Israel shared its lived experience a couple of months ago at WHO and identified that for the elderly of 60 and over, the middle age 40 to 49, and the young 16 to 39, the immunity waned anywhere between 2 months to 6 months. Now, for the elderly, the infection rate at 6 months was incredibly high. And that's not surprising because the Israelis had started to roll out their vaccine to the elderly at the beginning of the year. So, by about July, it had been 6 months for many of them. But certainly across each one of those three age groups, but all of them could have waning immunity as early as 2 months and as long as 6 months. But it seemed like the sweet spot for waning immunity was about 4.5 months. And that's when we should be really offering a booster. And just to support that idea, 60% of cases in Israel, when they had this huge number of 100-fold increase in cases in just 1.5 months, 60% that went to hospital had been vaccinated.
Oh, wow. So that does become quite a problem for our hospitals and for our healthcare system. And so that's why the booster is so important. Does it matter which booster we get?
It doesn't. It doesn't matter. And in fact, we've known this for quite some time. And we could have been talking about, the mix and match quite some time ago, because Oxford in the UK were looking at, for the second dose, not for the third dose, but the second dose, Pfizer following the first dose of AstraZeneca, and looked at it with 2 AstraZenecas, 2 Pfizers, and then Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and AstraZeneca, Pfizer. And it didn't really matter which way the Pfizer happened. If you had the Pfizer, the first or the second dose, you had a better response than if you had 2 AstraZenecas. Now, don't get me wrong, AstraZeneca stopped us from dying and stopped us from being hospitalized. But certainly this is great news for those of us who've had 2 AstraZenecas, that when we have that third dose with the Pfizer, we will get a turbocharge of an immune response. And then, of course, when Moderna comes in with enough dosing, then you could have a Moderna shot. Now, I know Moderna is working for about March next year, I think, to provide a very special booster shot, certainly maybe around this new variant of concern, Omicron. But quite frankly, any booster is better than no booster.
Yeah, and the biochemist in me sort of can think of a rationale for this, and it's to do with something called polyclonal antibodies. And what that really means is that you develop a spread of antibodies which are capable of measuring or recognizing different parts of the viral protein or the virus on the outside of the virus. So it's logical to me then that if you do get a booster of a different substance to your original, then your polyclonal response, your multi-antibody response will be bigger, and that will give you even more protection. So from a theoretical perspective, what you're saying makes absolute sense. I'd like to also ask you about this thing called breakthrough viral infection, and I'm sure it's related to the waning infection, although I did read a little study coming out of Italy which suggested that breakthrough infections could happen almost at any stage.
8.5% of people who went into hospital or ICU
Wow.
or
Okay.
or died. So New South Wales Health aggregated those together, and certainly of those that were hospitalised, went into ICU or died, 8.5% were vaccinated. So
Fully
that's a
vaccinated.
real concern. That's right, and a smaller across the board proportion of people who were fully vaccinated since the beginning of the Delta, which was around the 16th of June to the end of June, was about 5%. It's still not good.
Mm. Well, that just brings into sharp relief again the need for ongoing testing, and we
Exactly.
keep aged care facilities safe, keep health workers safe, and keep anybody in essential services safe, because we don't know when even double vaxxed people are going to turn out to be infectious. And if I'm not wrong, you can develop a viral load high enough to be transmitted even when you're double vax. That's correct, isn't it?
That is correct. So they did a small study based on healthcare workers and an outbreak in a cluster at home, and found that, interestingly, those of us who've been double vaccinated can have, when we do have infection, either asymptomatic or symptomatic, have a viral load very similar to the unvaccinated. But the good news is it looks as if your vaccine response means that you have a faster clearance of virus, so you're less likely to acquire infection from a vaccinated person, but not 100%. You're about 75% less likely to have the source from a vaccinated person, but that vaccinated person can still infect an unvaccinated person.
Okay. Well, that's fascinating, and it sort of leads us to the third topic that we're going to speak about in this little mini series, and that is the importance of testing. So, for the moment, though, I thank you very much, Mary Louise, and tune in for the next exciting episode. Bye for now.
Bye. Stay safe.